Okay, I see people are coming in. Добрий вечір, good evening. We have a very interesting presentation for you tonight. День вечір з нами дуже цікаві презентори, що будуть мати важливу інформацію. Наша тема нині ввечері є державні соціальні пільги для українців. Our topic tonight is federal benefits and credits for Ukrainians. So as we see people coming into the webinar, just wanted to point out a couple of housekeeping items. Для вас хочу повідомити для аудиторії, як ми будемо нашу програму мати нині вечором. Ви будете бачити презентори на вашому екрані. Ви можете слухати, ми маємо нині вечір українську інтерпретацію, бо презентація буде по-англійськи. So there is Ukrainian interpretation for those who wish to listen in Ukrainian. At the bottom of your screen, вниз вашого екрану є interpretation, і ви можете змінити на українську чи англійську мову. І пані Івана Плахотнюк буде вам перекладати на українську мову. Якщо ви маєте запитання, буде час після презентації. There will be time after the presentation to do a couple of questions. We'll try to group together similar questions. So there's a function called Q&A at the bottom of your screen, and you can click on that and write in a question or a comment if you have that. Ви можете це зробити під час презентації або після. You can do this, during or after the presentation, but I would encourage you, as soon as you have a question, to write it in there. Dmitro, my co-host, Pan Dmitro, will be watching. Dmitro буде слідкувати, чи є подібні питання, if there's similar themed questions that we can compile together. So я бачу, що ще люди заходять до нашого вебінару. We have just over 300 people that have entered the webinar, and we're going to be starting shortly. Ми маємо цей вебінар як частину нашої серії Expert Інсайти. So this is the UCC's webinar on Expert Insights. And I'll just briefly show you, покажемо вам нашу веб-сторінку on ucc.ca. Це є наша сторінка, де є серія вебінарів. Тут є відео від кожної, що вже відбулося. І маємо реєстрацію на наступний. So, на наступні теми будуть про державну допомогу дітей, житло, особиста безпека. Можна зареєструватися на ці теми. І тоді в 2024 році будемо мати ще далі. So I was just saying that anybody who goes to our website can find both the videos of the existing webinars and registration for all the upcoming ones. So that's on ucc.ca. Добре, I think we're going to get started. Пан Дмитро там написав, якщо ви хочете слухати вебінар українською мовою, будь ласка, переключіться на українську мову через кнопку Interpretation, переклад. Маємо пані Івану з нами нині вечір, що буде перекладати. Our presenters, Aaron and Jamie, will be presenting in English on the slides and in the audio, but there is a Ukrainian interpretation, що ви можете слухати. So if you haven't done so, you can go to the bottom of your screen, you can click Ukrainian, and there's a mute or unmute original language, because you may hear both. Ви можете буде чути обидва, ви можете там mute поставити, щоб тільки чути одну. So without further ado, я хочу представляти пані Erin Keeley і пан Jamie Jackson. I'd like to introduce Aaron and Jamie from the Canada Revenue Agency to begin our presentation.
Good evening. It's very nice to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for having us. All right. And
I just wanted, sorry, Aaron, just before we start, I know the session is being recorded, so I did want to just let everyone know that the information provided is, we're talking about federal tax credits and benefits, but the information is accurate as of today's date, so November 16th, 2023. If there's any discrepancy between the information that's provided and what is the current information, always go to the canada.ca website to find the most current and up-to-date information. And we usually specify that whenever we're doing a recording. Sorry about that, Aaron.
No, perfect. Thank you so much, Jamie. So hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Erin, and I work at the Canada Revenue Agency. Joining me today is my colleague, Jamie, and he will be the one monitoring the chat and answering any questions that are received. We're very happy to be here today, and we will be talking to you about the benefit and credit payments that you could be eligible for and how to apply for them. During this presentation, I will tell you about being a resident of Canada for tax purposes and who needs to file a tax return, financial assistance under the Canada-Ukraine Authorization for Emergency Travel, some of the benefits and credits you could get, including the GST/HST tax credit, how to keep getting your payments, some valuable web addresses and phone numbers, how to manage your tax and benefit affairs securely, and how to protect yourself against scams. Please note that for the rest of the presentation, I will be calling the Canada Revenue Agency the CRA. The CRA administers tax laws for the Government of Canada and for most provinces and territories. The CRA is also responsible for federal, provincial, and territorial programs funded through the tax system. Many of the services and benefits that we enjoy are made possible through taxes. The money collected through the different types of tax is used to fund facilities, services, and social programs, such as roads and bridges, education and schools, healthcare and hospitals, libraries, parks and playgrounds, employment insurance, old age security, the Canada Child Benefit, as well as social assistance. Canada's tax system is based on a self-assessment principle. That means that every taxpayer is responsible for doing their income tax return on time, reporting their income from all sources, paying any income tax owed on time, and ensuring the information on your return is accurate and complete. The CRA uses information from your tax return to calculate your benefit and credit payments. You need to do your taxes to receive what you may be eligible for. And for more information on Canada's tax system and how to do your first income tax return as a resident, you can go to the web address on your screen. You become a resident of Canada for income tax purposes when you establish significant ties in Canada. And usually you establish these ties on the date that you arrive in Canada. Significant residential ties to Canada include a home in Canada, a spouse or common law partner in Canada, and dependents who move to Canada to live with you. Please note that your residency status for tax purposes is different from your immigration status. If you would like the CRA's opinion about your residency status, you can fill out Form NR74, Determination of Residency Status. The Government of Canada is giving financial assistance to help Ukrainian families in Canada under the Canada-Ukraine Authorization for Emergency Travel. Go to canada.ca, click on Immigration and Citizenship, and there you will find information for people affected by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The assistance is a one-time, non-taxable benefit administered by Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada. It is not considered income from a source and does not need to be reported on the income tax and benefit return. Most banks will ask you to provide a social insurance number. This is for tax purposes. You do not need a SIN to apply for financial assistance. However, if you plan to work in Canada, you will need a SIN. To find a Service Canada office near you, or for more information on applying for a SIN, go to the web address on your screen or call the toll-free number. One question that you may be asking yourself is, do I have to file my taxes? If you've lived in Canada for a part of the year, you may have to do your taxes. Completing a tax return and reporting your income lets you calculate whether you owe taxes or will get a refund. In some situations, doing your taxes is mandatory. For example, if you have to pay tax or the CRA sent you a request to do so. But even if you don't have to do your taxes, it can be a good idea. For instance, you will need to do your taxes to claim a tax refund or to get benefit and credit payments like the GST, HST credit. You could be eligible to receive payments even if you didn't earn an income or if your income is tax exempt. For a complete list of when you need to do your taxes, you can refer to the section, Do you have to file a tax return, on canada.ca/new to Canada, or in the T1 General Income Tax and Benefit Guide. When you file your taxes, report any world income on your tax return that you earned after you became a resident of Canada for income tax purposes. Your world income is the income from all sources earned both inside and outside of Canada. For part of the year that you were not a resident of Canada, you only have to report income from employment in Canada or from business carried on in Canada, taxable capital gains from the disposition of taxable Canadian property, and the taxable part of scholarships, fellowships, bursaries, and research grants that you received from Canadian sources. If you also have to report income that you earned outside of Canada while you were a resident, you may be able to claim the foreign tax credit and avoid double taxation. Now let's talk about some of the benefits and credits that you could get. To work in Canada and receive benefits and services from the government, you need a social insurance number, also called a SIN. A SIN is a 9-digit identification number that is unique to you. You are the only person who is supposed to use it, and you are responsible for keeping it safe. If your SIN gets into the wrong hands, it could lead to fraud or even identity theft. The federal organization that issues SINs is Service Canada. You will need to give your SIN to your employer when you start a new job and to your bank when you open an account. They are responsible for protecting your personal information, and they use your SIN to send information about your income to the CRA. You also need to provide your SIN to government agencies or departments to access a benefit or service. For example, you'll give your SIN to the CRA when you do your taxes or complete a benefits application form. Here, your SIN will help identify you in the CRA's system. To get a SIN, you can apply online, by mail, or in person through a Service Canada office. You will have to provide or send in a document that proves your identity. To find a Service Canada office near you, or for more information on the SIN, go to the web address on the screen or call the toll-free number. If you don't meet Service Canada's eligibility criteria for a SIN, you can still apply for benefits and credits with the CRA. To do so, send us your benefit and credit application with a note explaining why you cannot get a SIN. Along with the note, you will need to include a photocopy of any document that proves your or your spouse's or common law partner's identity. This could be a passport, a driver's license, proof of birth, a study permit, a temporary resident permit, or any document issued by Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. The CRA will then give you a temporary tax number that you can use on your application forms and on your income tax and benefit return until you get your SIN. So now we're going to talk about the GST HST credit. It is a tax-free quarterly payment that helps individuals and families with low or modest incomes offset some of the GST or HST that they pay. You don't have to apply. When you do your taxes, the CRA will determine your eligibility for the credit. If you are eligible, the CRA will issue GST HST credit payments to you. And if you receive the CCB for your child, they are also registered for the GST HST credit, and you will receive an amount for that child if they are eligible. Newcomers don't need to wait until it's time to file a tax return to apply for the GST HST tax credit. They can apply as soon as they arrive in Canada using Form RC151. Newcomers with children will need to complete Form RC66, Canada Child Benefits Application, to apply for all child and family benefits, including the GST HST tax credit. For more information, you can visit canada.ca/new to Canada. Newcomers and residents returning to Canada have to apply for the GST HST credit using Form RC151, GST HST credit, and Climate Action Incentive Payment application for individuals who became a resident of Canada. You only have to apply in the year that you became a resident of Canada. For the following years, the CRA will determine if you are eligible when you do your taxes. If you have children and you send Form RC66 and Schedule RC66SCH to the CRA, you don't have to send in Form RC151. The CRA will use the information from your RC66SCH to determine if you are eligible for the GST HST credit and calculate your benefit amounts. Now we'll talk about the Canada Child Benefit, or CCB for short. The CCB is a tax-free monthly payment made to the primary caregiver of a child under 18 years of age. It helps them with the cost of raising that child. Payments are based on the number of children in your care, their ages, and your marital status. The CRA calculates benefit payments every July based on information from each parent's or common law partner's tax return from the year before. Applying for the CCB will also register the child for any federal, provincial, or territorial related programs. To be eligible for the CCB, you must meet all of the following conditions. Have or applied for a social insurance number for yourself and spouse or common law partner who resides in Canada, if applicable. You must live with the child, and the child must be under 18 years of age. You must be primarily responsible for the care and upbringing of the child, and you must be a resident of Canada for tax purposes. You or your spouse or common law partner must also be one of the following: a Canadian citizen, a permanent resident, a protected person, a temporary resident who has lived in Canada for the previous 18 months and who has a valid permit on the 19th month, or an individual who is registered or entitled to be registered under the Indian Act. You are primarily responsible for the care and upbringing of the child. If you supervise the child's daily activities and needs, you make sure that the child's medical needs are met, and you arrange childcare when necessary. A primary caregiver can be the child's mother, father, grandparent, or another family member, and you are not considered the person who is primarily responsible if the child is legally, physically, or financially maintained by a child welfare agency. If this is the case, the agency may receive the child's special allowance for their care. So next, we're going to talk about the disability tax credit. So what is the disability tax credit? In Canada, we recognize that persons with disabilities face many barriers, including additional expenses. The purpose of the DTC is to provide some relief for unavoidable additional expenses that result from living with a disability. This helps offset costs other taxpayers don't have to face. The disability tax credit helps persons with disabilities or their family members who support them reduce the amount of income tax that they may have to pay. It is a non-refundable tax credit. So this means that you don't get a payment for claiming it, but it does reduce the amount of tax that you may have to pay. You can also transfer any unused portions to a supporting family member. If you're eligible for the DTC and you are 18 years or older, the amount that you can claim on your 2023 tax return is $9,428. If you're eligible for the DTC and were under 18 years of age at the end of the year, or if you're the parent of a child who is under 18 and they are eligible for the DTC, you can claim up to an additional $5,500. Being eligible for the DTC can act as a gateway to other federal, provincial, and territorial programs, such as the Registered Disability Savings Plan, the Canada Workers Benefit Disability Supplement, and the Child Disability Benefit. This makes it important to apply for the DTC even if you have a low income or no income, so you can qualify for other disability-related programs, benefits, and plans. You cannot access these critical programs without first qualifying for the DTC. Please note that provincial and territorial disability amounts and tax credits rates vary among provinces and territories. The child disability benefit is a tax-free payment of up to $3,173 annually. It's made for families who care for a child under the age of 18 who is eligible for the disability tax credit. If you are already getting the Canada Child Benefit for a child in your care who is eligible for the DTC, you do not need to apply for the Child Disability Benefit. You will get it automatically. The Child Disability Benefit is paid monthly to the person who receives the Canada Child Benefit for that child. A child is eligible for the disability tax credit when the CRA approves the Form T2201, on which a medical practitioner has certified that the child has a severe and prolonged impairment in physical or mental functions that affects their ability to perform one or more of the basic activities of daily living. To find out what benefits you may be eligible for, you can use the Benefits Finder online. By answering a few questions, the Benefits Finder will customize a list of benefits for which you may be eligible. Go to the first web address on your screen. If you want to get an estimate of the payment amounts that you could get, go to the second web address on your screen. The CRA calculator tool calculates any federal and provincial or territorial payments that you may be eligible for. Once your benefit payments start, there are 3 things that you'll need to do to keep getting them. First, you need to make sure that you do your taxes for every year after you become a resident of Canada. The CRA can't calculate your benefit and credit payments without your tax information. Second, make sure the CRA has your most recent personal information. Notify the CRA of any changes to your address, direct deposit information, marital status, and the number of children in your care. Third, respond as early as possible to any letters that you might get from the CRA. If you need some extra time, contact us. The key to receiving your benefits and credits on time is doing your taxes. We know it's not a fun process and it can be a bit scary for some, but it's so important. Benefit and credit payments are calculated based on your family's net income. This is why you need to do your taxes every year after you become a resident of Canada. If you have a spouse or common law partner, they also have to do their taxes. Even if you didn't earn any income in the year, we need this information. In Canada, the tax year is the same as the calendar year, from January to December, and tax returns are generally due by April 30th of the next year. As a newcomer to Canada, you don't have to do a tax return the year you become a resident of Canada. So, if you become a resident of Canada in February 2022, you will do your first tax return in 2023. This tax return will cover the income that you received from February to December 2022. Doing your taxes on time ensures that your benefit and credit payments aren't delayed or stopped. So there are a few different ways to do your taxes. Doing your taxes online is the fastest and easiest way. You can use tax software or a web application. These are available at the first web address shown on your screen. Tax software guides you through the process and calculates everything for you. It helps make sure that you don't miss out on any benefits and credits, and some of the products are free. Volunteers may be able to do your tax returns for free. There are tax clinics hosted by community organizations across Canada for those with a modest income and a simple tax situation. For more information, go to the second web address on your screen. You can also get help from a family member, a friend, or a tax preparer. Or you can download a tax package, fill out the paper forms, and then mail them to the CRA. You must use the package for the province you lived in on December 31st. To get a package, you can go to the last web address or call the number on your screen. You may be wondering what to do with your documents after you've filed. When filing electronically, keep all of your receipts and documents in case the CRA asks to see them later. For a paper return, the instructions will tell you what documents need to be attached, such as receipts and tax slips. You should keep all receipts and documents for at least 6 years after you file your return, as the CRA may ask to review them. As I just mentioned, you may be able to get your taxes done by a volunteer for free. The CRA works with community organizations and their volunteers to help eligible individuals file their taxes for free. The program is called the Community Volunteer Income Tax Program, and in Quebec, it's known as the Income Tax Assistance Volunteer Program. And you're eligible if you have a modest income and a simple tax situation. So generally, a modest income is less than $35,000 for a single person and less than $45,000 for a couple. Your tax situation is simple if you don't have a small business or income from a rental property. Tax clinics are held all year. However, most tax clinics are offered in March and April. During the pandemic, we have created virtual tax clinics to serve those who may not have access to an in-person location. And for more information or to find a clinic near you, you can go to the web address on the screen. If there has been a major change in your life, you should update your information with the CRA as soon as possible. It's important to let the CRA know if there are changes to your mailing address or your home address, your marital status, the number of children in your care, your direct deposit information, or if you experience a death in your family. Along with doing your taxes every year, keeping your information up to date will allow you to keep getting the right benefit and credit payments. You can update this information using My Account, My CRA, or My Benefit CRA mobile applications, by mail, or an agent can assist by phone. Now I will give you an overview of what to expect if the CRA contacts you, along with some tips to help you be scam smart by understanding and recognizing the different types of scams. Be careful when you get a telephone call, a text message, an email, or mail from someone claiming to be the CRA. This is especially true if it asks for personal information, such as the number on your credit card, bank account, or passport. These messages may insist that personal information is needed so that you can receive a refund or a benefit payment. They can also threaten legal consequences to scare you into paying a debt to the CRA that does not actually exist. There are also other communications that may urge taxpayers to visit a fake CRA website where you are asked to verify your identity by entering personal information. These are all scams, and you should never respond to these fraudulent communications or click on any of the links provided. It's important to be vigilant when it comes to scammers. The CRA can contact you by telephone, and they may call if you owe tax money to a government program. A collections officer may call you to discuss your file and ask you to make a payment. In this case, you may need to provide some information about your household financial situation. The CRA may also call if they have questions about a tax and benefit records or documents that you have sent. A CRA officer would ask for more information when they were making that call. When the CRA calls you, they may verify your identity by asking for personal information such as your full name, your date of birth, your address, and your account or social insurance number. Please remember that the CRA will not demand immediate payments with gift cards, prepaid credit cards, or Bitcoin, and the CRA will not say the police are coming or threaten a prison sentence or deportation. You may think that you've received a text message or an email from the CRA, but did you really? There may be times when the CRA will notify you by email when a new message or a document, such as a notice of assessment or reassessment, is available for you to view in secure CRA portals, such as My Account, My Business Account, or Represent a Client. Or you may have subscribed to receive an email notification about an upcoming benefit payment. Please note that we will never ask you to provide personal information in return by email. However, the CRA may email you a link to a CRA webpage, form, or publication that you had asked for during a telephone call. Also, the CRA will not use instant messaging, such as Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp, to communicate with you about any tax-related issues under any circumstance. If you receive a text or an instant message claiming to be from the CRA, beware since it could be a scam. When in doubt, ask yourself why the CRA would need your personal information. Do you have a balance owing? Are you expecting money from the CRA? Check and see if you have mail or an amount owing in your My Account, and if you are unsure, contact the CRA. Never click on a link unless you are sure it's from the CRA, and when in doubt, delete. You can visit canada.ca/bscamsmart to learn more, and you can report a scam to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre at the web address or the phone number on your screen. If you suspect that you may be the victim of fraud, you should contact your local police service. Now that we have discussed some of the benefits and credits that you could get, let's discuss how you can ensure you can keep receiving them. Once your benefit payments start, you will need to make sure you do your taxes for every year after you become a resident of Canada. The CRA can't calculate your benefit and credit payments without your tax information. Did you want to learn more about taxes and how to do your tax return? We can help. If you check out our free online interactive tool, Learn About Your Taxes. Through simple and interactive web content, you will learn what you need when starting your first job, figuring out your paycheck, and what you need to know before doing your taxes, and how to start a basic return. It has resources such as videos, common tax terms, and links to websites where you can learn more. More topics will be added, including what you should know after doing your taxes and more on benefits and credits. Be sure to check it out on the address on your screen. So this is the end of our webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. If there are any questions, we will be able to answer them now. And for more information on any of the related topics, you can visit our webpage at canada.ca/taxes.
Значить, Ігор, ти хочеш щось сказати? Я почну, в принципі, але якщо ти хочеш щось сказати, то кажи.
Дякую. I just thank you, Aaron, for that great presentation. We had it in Ukrainian. I was listening in Ukrainian, so дякую, Ivano. Thank you to Ivana for that great translation. I wanted to just thank the Canada-Ukraine Foundation, which is our main grant provider for this series that's been helping us to give information to newcomers. And as you said, Aaron, we're going to be turning it over to Dmytro and you and Jamie to talk about some of the questions. Дякую, Dmytro. There's been a lot of questions that he has answered throughout the webinar, some very practical things. So yes, we are recording this. Yes, it will be on the UCC's YouTube channel tomorrow. So Dmytro, I'm turning it over to you to facilitate probably about 20 minutes of questions with Aaron and Jamie, and Ivana with the translation. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Igor. And again, thank you, our CRA guest and Ivana, for that tremendous job that you've done. I know how it's very tedious and difficult to translate synchronously, and thank you, Ivana, for this. So what I'm going to do is, and just to set the stage, we won't be going into personal details. We can see that lots of questions here have personal details. Each of the individual situations are different. We won't be discussing that. What we can do is we can generalize these questions and we can provide general answers and maybe, a few specifics, but they won't if you're looking for a specific answer, you won't get it. And Jamie has posted a few times the number of the CRA benefits inquiries that you can call, and you can get the answer if it's specific to your situation. Okay, so let's start, and maybe just kind of recap, because I've noticed a few questions. There were a few questions regarding when Ukrainians who have arrived in Canada, when they become or became the residents for tax purposes. Like, is it from day one when they received work permit? Is it when they started renting their apartment? Like, what's the exact date?
So I'll step in on that one, Dimitro. The question of eligibility or residency for tax purposes revolves around usually when you arrived in Canada. If you have, as Aaron mentioned earlier, if you have residential ties, so if you have a home, or if you take up residence, it doesn't have to be purchasing a home. But if you take up residence, if you've come here with children, there were a couple of different instances where that was determined to be that day that you landed in Canada. That's not your, not to be confused with your residency for, residency in Canada, but residency for tax purposes in most cases is when you arrived. If you arrived and took up residence, if you arrived with children or someone dependent on you. So I hope that answers that question relatively well. Again, as Dimitro said, if you ever have a question, about your own situation, and you deserve that, you deserve to get an answer for that. That's not something that Aaron and I are able to give here, but the Canada Revenue Agency, if you call them at 1-800-959-8281, they would be able to ask you some questions and be able to determine your actual status based on the information that you provide.
Hey, thank you, Jamie. And I'm going to give a few seconds, Ivana, just to finish her translation. And so looking through all the questions, another theme here is the eligibility for GST, HST credits and climate action incentive payment. So there are a few questions about when people can start applying for those benefits. Is it when they arrived in Canada? Should they wait? Do they have to work in Canada? Do they have to pay taxes to be eligible for these benefits?
No. So, sorry, Aaron, I'm not sure if you were going to speak there. Newcomers, and it comes right from our presentation. Newcomers do not need to wait until it's time to file a tax return to apply for the GST HST credit. They can apply as soon as they arrive in Canada using the form RC151. Now, the only difference would be newcomers who arrive with children would need to complete the form RC66, which is the Canada Child Benefits application. And even though you aren't in Canada for 18 months yet, part of that RC66, the application for Canada Child Benefits, they will determine when they receive that, your eligibility for the GST HST credit. So it may take 18 months for them to determine what you're eligible for Canada Child Benefit, but with the GST HST credit and the new climate action incentive, that eligibility is determined based on either one of those forms, and it's something that the person can apply for as soon as they arrive, and they don't have to be working to do that.
Okay, again, a few seconds for Ivana while I'm looking for the next one. So there were a few questions about how to distinguish between world income that people received before arriving in Canada, like what income they are supposed to put into those forms. Let's say RCA 66 SCH, right? Or 151. What's the income there?
So when an individual comes to Canada, and we'll just, as an example, the person came to Canada on the 1st of May, 2022. So when a person comes to Canada, we are looking for your income in Ukrainian, and I was looking at it, I'm not sure I can pronounce it correctly, but in Ukrainian currency. And then we change that over into Canadian dollars. So we're looking for how much a person earned in the Ukraine and then converted into Canadian dollars. That information goes in for the period of January 1st to the end of April of 2022. And then after that, if you had earned any income in Canada after that, then that's different. So I know I can remember myself doing a return for a newcomer from Ukraine, and that was something that we did a conversion at the tax clinic to determine based on, and I was just looking here, and I believe it was 0.38 or I guess, yeah, 0.38 Canadian dollars for every one of the Ukrainian currency. So when you come to a tax clinic or to come to get your taxes done for free, those individuals will be able to help you with that calculation. But that's what we're looking for: income that you would have earned back in Ukraine or whatever a person's home country is before arriving. And then later on in the year, we're looking for what you would have earned in Canada after that point. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you. And maybe just to clarify, because there was a question. So the income that they had received or earned before arriving in Canada, it won't be counted as a taxable income.
No. And the reason why we ask that is if someone came with, if they would have earned just a basic, maybe it was 2,000 in Ukrainian currency, we just want to know based on the period of time from January 1st until the end of April, what they had earned there. And then, but that is not taxable. It's just an indication of of how much money or how much earnings they had. There is no Canadian tax to pay on that. It's just an indication of what you earned before you arrived and then what you would have earned after. And many people who would have earned some income back in Ukraine before they arrived here, it may be many months before they would have earned income in Canada. It's just that in order to calculate the benefits correctly, we need to know how much money you would have earned before and then how much you would have earned in Canada after.
Thank you, Jamie.
You're welcome.
There were a few questions related to delays of their tax assessment. So again, people have submitted their tax returns to CRA, and they've done that. They had done that before April 30th, but
Yes.
they're still waiting.
Yeah. And it can take some extra time, but I believe that is a little bit longer than it really should ever take someone. When we talk about the Canada Child Benefit application and how they may hold that for the 18 months and determine later on the eligibility, that's not what we do with tax returns. So if someone has a question around their tax return and they haven't received any kind of notice of assessment indicating that it was completed and assessed correctly, you would want to call the Canada Revenue Agency. And again, the number is 1-800-959-8281, just to see if there is anything, perhaps they didn't receive it. It could have been done on paper, it could have been done electronically, but in any case, anything that comes up is always something that we can rectify or correct. So we don't want anyone to feel that if for some reason they thought their taxes were filed and they come to find out they weren't, that's okay. We have many options available, including our free tax clinics, to help you with that. It's most important for you or for the individual to find out if it is actually has been completed or not, and then we can work from there to fix to assist them.
Thank you, Jamie. There were a few questions from people who continue working for their Ukrainian-based employers, and they're wondering if they have to pay taxes here in Canada for the income that they earned elsewhere.
There are many different tax agreements between Canada and other countries, but normally when an individual in that circumstance would file their taxes in Canada, again, we would be looking for how much they might have earned in Ukraine before they arrived. We're also looking for how much they would have earned in Canada after they arrived. But there is also a place where you can put in what you continued to earn from the Ukraine after you arrived. So there's the income you earned from Ukraine before coming to Canada, the income you earned from Ukraine after, and then the income that you earned in Canada. Only the income that's earned in Canada is taxable under the Canadian tax system.
Thank you. What is the best way or the fastest way to update your personal information, such as you moved addresses, you have a newborn child, etc.? Is it through My Account CRA? Is it just calling or sending paper forms?
Yeah, in most cases, Dimitro, it would be calling, because for someone who is new to Canada, and if you haven't filed a tax return yet, you wouldn't have access to my account. My account is a great, it's a great thing to have, and it's nice to be able to go online, look up information, get copies of tax forms, but you can't get a My Account until you have filed a tax return in Canada and had it assessed. So anyone who would like to do it the fastest way or doing it online aren't able to do that until at least that first tax return is filed. So I would encourage them to call us, again, 1-800-959-8281. And that is the best way to make a change of address, to add if there's a child, there's a new child that is born. When it comes to if there's a child born and a child is born in a hospital here in Canada, many times at the hospital, they will have some paperwork, including the Canada Child Benefits application. So they certainly could, fill that out right away and send that in. Again, if they have any questions around Canada Child Benefit or the GST-HST credit, the number that I gave in the chat is a little bit different. It's 1-800-387-1193. And that number is specifically for, the Canada Child Benefits GST-HST credit. It's more of a streamlined, you'll probably get an answer faster regarding those subjects at that line.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. And
Yep.
again, a few seconds, Ivana, to finish while I'm looking for the next one. During the presentation, it was said that people are supposed to keep their receipts for the receipts, and there were a few questions. What kind of receipts they're supposed to keep? What I've heard personally, and that was just kind of anecdotal data, people are keeping even groceries receipts. Okay.
Yeah, and that is a good question. So when it comes to filing taxes in Canada, for most individuals who are just filing, they may be working or they may not be working, the type of receipts that you would want to keep would be if you are paying someone for childcare, if you have your children in a daycare center or a kindergarten, you want to make sure that you get a receipt for that. There are many, and we don't talk about provincial benefits in this because, we have attendees from many different provinces, but there are sometimes provincial benefits that would be, it would be important to keep receipts for, but usually grocery receipts, those type of things wouldn't be something that you would take, we would use on the tax return. But medical receipts, if you paid for medications, if you had to buy medical devices, certainly those would be receipts that you would want to keep. The only other instance where someone would want to keep some of those receipts, like you mentioned, is if someone was in business for themselves and they had a small business and maybe they were doing construction or something like that, maybe they were cleaning houses or something, then some of those expenses that they have would be something they could claim on their taxes, but only in that case if they were in a business for themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Really quickly, also, if they made any
Yeah.
donations, they would want to keep
That's
those
right.
receipts
Yes,
as well.
that's right.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank
thanks. What is the process of applying for DCT for disabled child? Is there?
Okay.
Yeah, there were a few questions there.
Yeah, I have quite a bit of experience in that. So for the disability tax credit, it's a really important one for someone to apply for if their child has a disability. There is a form, and it's called the T2201 Disability Tax Credit Certificate. It is a 6 or 7 page long form, so it's a fairly complex form. But to break it down, there is a portion of the form that you would fill out indicating either yourself as the person with the disability or the child. So you would indicate that, Dimitro, if it was you, that you are applying for your child and that you would be claiming any of the, the credits that went with it if the child was under 18. You take that to your doctor. It could be a physician, it could be a nurse practitioner, or it could be a specialist. So someone that deals with a specific disability. So an audiologist if the child had a hearing issue, a speech language pathologist if they had speech. So any of those specialists who deal with those very specific disabilities. But you would take that to your physician, nurse practitioner, or medical professional. They would indicate the child or the individual with the disability needs to have what we consider to be a severe and a prolonged impairment in either physical or mental functions. So physical being if they were having trouble walking or if they had trouble feeding themselves, getting dressed. Mental functions, it could be something like autism or something like that. So in any case, the person needs to have a severe and prolonged impairment, which means it happens, at least 90% of the time. It is there at least 90% of the time, and it has been ongoing or is expected to last longer than a year. You take that form to your physician or your medical professional. They fill it out. You send it in, and if approved, it takes about 8 weeks to find out. If approved, not only can you claim that amount, which was around $9,000 as a tax credit, it could work out to be about $1,000 or $1,500 back on your return, but the child is eligible for the child disability benefit, which I believe we had a slide up there. It's around $230 or $240 a month maximum. Now, if your income was higher, you would receive less, much as the same as any of our credits. But for someone who would have a minimal amount of income, not only would you receive that amount for the period of time that the child is determined to have the disability, but they may even go back, and they do go back retroactive. So as an example, if your child has a disability, they have had it for 3 years, it's expected to last for some time. You would complete this application, CRA would review it, and then we may go back those 3 years and give you that 200, maximum of 200 and some dollars a month, which is extremely helpful for someone who has a child with a disability.
Okay, thank you. And it was a long answer, so hopefully
I know, I'm sorry.
got that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are a few questions about, because right now we are seeing, and we keep seeing people arriving and their spouses, let's say wives with children are coming to Canada, whereas husbands are still staying in Ukraine. Do they, like, once they apply for these benefits, do they have to fill out information about their husband's income?
They do. Yeah, they do. So when someone comes to one of the tax clinics, or if they go to a tax preparation to have someone assist them, one of the questions will be, are you married, or do you have a common law spouse? Do you have children? And is your spouse or common law partner living in Canada or living in another country? So we would be looking for, if it's the mother of the children who has taken the children to Canada, we're looking for her income. Again, if it was the first year, we're looking for what she might have earned in Ukraine and then what she earned in Canada. Any year beyond that, if the second year she was here with the children and her husband remained in Ukraine, then we still need to know what his income is in Ukraine, converted into Canadian dollars, to determine his ability, or how much his ability is to assist with some of the costs. And we're not asking someone to, we're not asking the husband to pay a certain amount of money, but it gives us an indication of how much support is needed by the mother and the children. And with any CRA benefits, it is all based on the income for the family, and based on that, how much need that there is. So that's why it's important to know what the spouse, even if they're living in Ukraine, if you're married, what their income is, and then we convert it into Canadian dollars.
Okay, thank you, Jamie.
Okay.
I'm going to go back to the DCT credit because there are a few questions, and I think there is some confusion.
Okay.
What is non-refundable credit? Because people are under the impression that they're getting money.
Yeah.
And
so, yeah, I'll start with that, because that is a very important part of the disability tax credit. So to give you an example, a non-refundable tax credit means if you were working and you paid taxes on every paycheck, maybe you're paying a couple $100 per paycheck. So you would have paid taxes to the government of Canada. And then at the end of the year, we determine based on tax credits, and the disability tax credit is approximately $9,000 of a tax credit. If you had taxes paid in that we felt you'd paid too much, we will refund those to you. And the disability tax credit normally does that. If someone has a disability, perhaps it's for them or for their child, but they weren't working during the year, then if they never paid any taxes into the government of Canada, we won't give any back that you didn't pay. So I hope that makes it clear. and that seems unfortunate, but when someone has a lower income and they weren't paying taxes in, we likely have other programs that were available to them, GST, HST credit. They would be receiving a higher Canada Child benefit. So yeah, non-refundable means if you paid taxes in, we'll give you some back, but if you didn't pay any in, we can't, we can't give those out. I hope that answers the question. I know it's not always the answer that people like, but
Yeah, and
yes,
sure,
yep.
no problem, Anna. Okay, thank you, Anna.
Yeah, there is one question that I wanted to be able to answer, and it was from Natalia. Do I need to pay taxes in Canada when I sell property in Ukraine? And that's a really good question. One of the questions that we ask when we complete a tax return is, did you sell foreign property? But I want to be clear about this. If that property in Ukraine was your home, it was your family home, it might have even been it could have been a summer home. If that is your personal use property, then that is not what we're looking for. It would be if you had made a sale of a factory, a business, or something like that. So when we ask about, have you sold foreign property during 2022, that would be what we're asking about. Is it a business? Is it a you know something other than your own personal use home or even a summer home?
Okay, thank you for this clarification. Okay. There were, I think, 3 or 4. Okay.
Sure. Yep.
Okay, thank you. There were 3 questions, I think, about the registered accounts, such as TFSA, first home buyer saving account, RSP, etc. Are these Ukrainians who arrived in Canada eligible to open those accounts?
So in those cases, Dimitri, that would be an area where we don't have a lot of expertise. But what is important when opening any of those accounts is that they would require your social insurance number. So in order to open any kind of account that generates interest or brings upon savings for you, it requires that you provide them with your social insurance number. And at the end of the year, they would provide you, if you earned interest, they would provide you a statement of interest income. So I don't feel confident being able to answer that. I believe that they can. I think most importantly, they need to have a social insurance number to do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, a few questions, and I will give a minute. Sorry.
Okay, Dimitro, I see a question there that Aaron has brought forward that I think is really good. Aaron has asked whether someone has to resubmit the Canada Child Benefit application if they were not eligible the first time that they applied. For example, if they weren't eligible and they filled out the application to get the GST HST credit and it's 18 months later. And we had that question come up in the Q&A a couple of times. So that Canada Child Benefits application, as we mentioned, you can apply for that. And if those individuals who have children, that is the method that they would apply for the GST HST credit. Clearly, they're not going to be eligible for the Canada Child Benefit right away. But in 18 months' time, they normally don't have to reapply. If the application is there and the time frame has expired where you're now eligible, normally that you wouldn't have to reapply. But we did have a couple of individuals in the Q&A who said, I believe 18 months is coming up, maybe this month, maybe next month. Again, if you have any questions, if you haven't heard anything, I think it's very important to call the benefit inquiries line. They are the individuals or group that deal with the Canada Child Benefit and the GST HST credit. The number to call them is 1-800-387-1193. And they will be able to answer your questions about your the time frame, whether your application is still in the system and pending, or if anything needs to be done.
Okay.
Maybe one more question, Dimitro, if we could.
Yeah. So there is a question. I think that's a good one. What about and I'm going to just read this. What are the tax-related benefits for Ukrainians who take care about their disabled Ukrainian parents who came under this QUAD program? And I'm going to just go further a bit because there were a few questions about children who came here and people who are, let's say, Canadian. They are legal guardians. They're not their parents, but but parents from Ukraine. They give them this guardianship or papers to be legal guardians here in Canada.
Yeah. And that one, again, is very specific to the individual situation. So I feel that it would be probably incorrect or kind of foolhardy for me to answer that. But it's important. And that would be a question, again, for the benefits inquiries line. Normally, if someone is taking care of a child and that is not their child, and it happens here in Canada all the time, we have grandparents who are looking after children or aunts or uncles or other family members. Normally, there is some formal arrangement or formal agreement that states that. Sometimes the Canada Revenue Agency will look for information. It could be from the child's school. It could be from the child's it could be from the church. It could be from another community organization that knows that child. So some of those criteria probably come into place there. I wouldn't feel good about giving a certain answer because I think that might lead people astray. But again, 1-800-387-1193 would be able to answer that question for sure.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for the great questions, and Dimitrov for stick handling that with Jamie. If you have more desire for information, we will be back with Jamie and Aaron later in November, I think on the 28th, if I'm not mistaken, to talk about the child benefit specifically. And as they've noted, there's a lot of information people can access online, and again, we can't give specific information tonight. So again, I wanted to thank Aaron and Jamie and Dimitrov for pulling together this program. Thank you to everybody who's watched tonight. Thank you to the Canada-Ukraine Foundation who's supporting our program. We'll look forward to seeing Aaron and Jamie again on the 28th, and wishing everybody a good night. Dobranic.
Thank you.
Thank you.